The Biden administration forgives $10,000 of federal student loan debt for most borrowers. I'm Dale Schaefer with Life Moves Wealth Management. Let's talk about it. Okay, so by now you have heard the news. It's all over the news. It's all over social media. The Biden administration released a relief program to forgive up to $10,000 of student loan debt, federal student loan debt, for most borrowers. I wanted to share with you the details because that relief program actually has three components, including the student loan forgiveness. So the first thing is that the administration is saying that they are putting a final extension on the student loan repayment pause that's been in effect since March of 2020. March 27th, my birthday, of 2020 to be exact, because that was a part of the CARES Act being put into law. So since March of 2020, if you had a federal student loan debt, you have not been required to make a payment, and there's been no interest accruing since that time. If you've had a private student loan, that did not apply to you. You've continued to make your payments. But I'll come back to that later in the video. So the Biden administration is saying that at the end of this year, December 31st, 2022, that will be the end of the student loan repayment pause, and effective January 2023, all student loans will turn back on and you will be back on your regularly scheduled payment program, with the exception of any amount of money that gets reduced because you had loans forgiven, which is part 2. So as part of this, they are specifically trying to benefit low and middle income families. So if you are a single tax filer and your income is less than $125,000, you qualify for up to $10,000 of federal student loan relief or forgiveness. If you are a married filing joint or a head of household filer and your income is below $250,000, then you also qualify for $10,000 of federal student loan forgiveness. If you had a Pell Grant while you were in college, if you received a Pell Grant and you now have student loans as a result of your education, you may qualify for up to $20,000 of forgiveness. So definitely very, very helpful for a lot of people in the country. There's also some very specific things for the public service loan forgiveness. So if you work for a nonprofit, the military, any federal, state, or tribal local government, you may be eligible to have all of your student loans forgiven through the public service loan forgiveness program. Now, there are, just on that quick note, if you qualify for that, they do want you to have your application for the public service loan forgiveness program submitted by November 1st of 2020, because after that time you will not be eligible for this very specific program. So that's just something to pay attention to if you or if that applies to you. The second thing, or I should say the third thing now, is that they are working on making these programs more accessible and easier to manage going forward for future students. So some of the things that they're doing is they're lowering the amount or the percentage of your discretionary income that you would pay on, and this would be on an income-based repayment plan. So they're reducing the amount that you that counts for your payment, which will help a lot of people. They are reducing the amount of income that's considered non-discretionary, so they're changing what they're looking for when they're determining what your payment's going to be. They're going to be forgiving loan balances after 10 years instead of 20 years. And certainly for borrowers with about $12,000 or less, they're going to cut that term, And then finally, on the income-based repayment plan, they are going to be covering the unpaid monthly interest for those borrowers. So there's a lot of details here. If you head over to studentaid.gov, the very top of that page, there's going to be a banner that talks specifically about this program. It'll say the Biden-Harris administration's Student Debt Relief Plan Explained. Click that link. All the details are here. And if you have any questions, there are resources available to help you there. Okay, so let me get into just real quick kind of what I see playing out here. So there's a couple of factors that I think are potentially of interest to the average taxpayer. So the first thing is that this program, specifically the Federal Student Loan Forgiveness Program, was a campaign promise. On the Biden-Harris ticket, they talked about loan forgiveness. We've heard about it for 2 years. They finally were able to get it done. And it came just in time because we have midterm elections coming up this November. Now, the Biden administration knew that they were facing a tough ballot process because the economy for the past 8 months has been really bad for a lot of people. And certainly over the past year, it's been not great. So they were losing on the economy. They needed a big win. Inflation coming down last month certainly helped. The so-called Inflation Reduction Act that was signed last month was a big win for some people. Certainly added some taxes for businesses and did some other things. Also, I don't like that it's called the Inflation Reduction Act because its acronym is IRA, but that's beside the point. Anyway, they needed a big win. This gets them a big win. Certainly is going to help them in the polls and certainly among younger borrowers, younger voters as well. I do question the timing, not only because of the election, but also because we're in the middle of fighting inflation. And when we give stimulus, that's not deflationary activity. And so this very much is a stimulus. I'm not sure how it's going to be paid for. It's potentially going to result in a tax somewhere else because there is no free lunch. And if you think that we ever have free education or free healthcare, I definitely need to introduce you to the taxes that will probably pay for that because it's not free. We usually have to give up something to get that kind of benefit. The other question I have is typically with income-based repayment programs before the CARES Act, anytime that these kinds of debts are forgiven, the amount that's forgiven is taxable to you as a taxpayer. It counts as taxable income. Now, currently through 2025, there is no tax on income-based repayment programs where a loan amount is forgiven, but that sunsets after 2025, and so any forgiveness program coming up after that, any amount that's forgiven is taxable income, which leads me to my next question. What about the people who are currently in college or the people who will be enrolling in college over the next 2, 3, 5 years? They're going to be certainly watching this, and they're going to look at this precedent and they're going to say, well, if the federal government did it once, they can do it again, and where's my loan relief program? Where's my loan forgiveness program? So it's going to be an expectation. Now, we are doing absolutely nothing for the people who have private student loans. Over the past 2.5 years, they've had to make their payments. And now they are not included in this loan forgiveness program because those are federal programs, not private programs. And so we're doing nothing to help those people. And a lot of times, the cost of college, sometimes they have to split between federal loans and private loans. And so there are great people in the country who meet these income requirements, but they don't get any of this relief. So I think that's definitely a challenge. And then finally, I think that it's socially a concern for some people because we have people on one side who definitely need this benefit and it will be very helpful to them, and I think that's great. But on the other side of that, we also are going to have people who are going to look at this and say, hey, I pay for my student loan. I don't want to pay for yours, but now I have to because I'm a taxpayer. So how about you just pay for your student loan? You agree to do it ethically, morally, you have the responsibility. And so I think that there's a challenge. It's one more division point as if we needed another one in this country. But that's where we are. So definitely some things to think about. There's definitely some considerations to go into play. If this program will benefit you, by all means, take the steps, get yourself the application sent in, and get the relief that will be helpful to you. If you can look at this and say, I might qualify, but I'll probably just make my payments because it feels like the right thing to do, then by all means do that. If you have questions about how this program is going to play out, how it might impact you and your financial plan, please head over to lifemoveswealth.com. There you can find all the contact information, and I'll be happy to set some time to speak with you. Otherwise, I'm curious what you think. Leave comment below, and share your thoughts. Please also hit that subscribe button. We're building the channel here and planning on releasing more videos along the way when things like this happen, or just general short, brief financial topics that can be very helpful and maybe even better than what you might find on some of the other social media channels. So anyway, thank you for watching this. Please share your thoughts below. I'm Dale Schaefer with Life Moves Wealth Management. Take care.